Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I've got a good friend and exciting guest today, Hunter Thompson. I've known Hunter probably for 3 years. We actually went to the same college. I didn't even know it. And this guy, it's fun to see people that are the same age as you and just a completely different growth trajectory. This guy, I think last time I checked, you've raised somewhere like $80+ million for from investors for all types of real estate deals. I know that your firm, ASIM Capital, specializes on recession-resistant real estate assets that have an inverse correlation between overall market conditions. You've done everything from self-storage to mobile home parks, multifamily units. I know you've got a big push in the Phoenix market, but really what I'm excited about today is how you've grown this amazing mastermind. He is the founder and owner of Raisemasters, mastermind that I'm a part of, helps real estate investors raise capital from real estate without pulling their hair out. And let me tell you, his mastermind has been a huge instrument in completely transforming our business. So I'm very excited to jump into the story with that today and what's going on in your mastermind. I know you've got some events that you're working on. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Dude, thanks so much for the very kind introduction. And it's been amazing to see your growth as well. And I'm excited about this conversation. I've never talked about what we're going to talk about before, but you reached out and I was like, this is exciting. It's really good timing. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, we wanted to do something special for our 100 episode, and I couldn't ask for a better guest. So, for the audience, real quick, that does not know you, maybe give us a brief background on you.
Yeah. So I got into this business. My number one goal was to just help my mom get money out of the stock market. I felt like there was no predictability in the stock market. It was kind of a casino. I saw what happened in not only 2008, but also the European debt crisis a year or two after that, and thought, look, if the German bond yields are playing a huge role in my mom's stock portfolio that's basically all US based, there's no way that I'm going to ever be able to predict or mitigate any of these kinds of third-party risks. And especially when it comes to centrally planned governments and central banks, it's like, what are we going to do here? So I went on a journey to try to find, like you said, inversely correlated or at least predictable cash flow machines. And I was quickly led to real estate. I was interested in anything that created that goal, that objective. But self-storage, mobile home parks, and multifamily as a passive investor was how I entered into the space. And after finding some great operators and ending up raising capital for them through a structure called a fund of funds, I ended up raising tens of millions of dollars and grew a team on the ASIM Capital private equity side of things. And in 2017, started to realize that I wanted to go all in on one niche, one strategy, but the market was just really competitive. And so I waited and waited and waited and kept researching, kept bringing on new talented people. And then interest rates rose faster than they've risen in 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, for the first time in around 10 years, the most prime assets in necessarily the most prime markets, especially markets that you could only make the deals pencil with floating rate debt, started to trade at a 20% discount. And so we decided we're going to go all in on Phoenix multifamily. My partner is moving there, just moved there, and that's all we're going to do. So we're saying no to every other kind of business. I've raised money for everything: ATM machines, office, industrial, non-performing notes, you name it. I've also raised, tens of millions of dollars for Phoenix multifamily, but we're just saying no more anything 40-mile radius around Phoenix, B-class apartments, and going all in. That's my background. And then along the way, after raising tens of millions of dollars, I wrote a book about the topic called Raising Capital for Real Estate, which my goal was to sell 10,000 copies. And I'm really happy to say that we just recently crossed, I think, 13,000, which is awesome. But the result of that book was that it was clear that the way that I communicated really resonated with at least a small group of real estate entrepreneurs. And I knew there was an opportunity to create an e-learning coaching / mastermind business off of the success of that book. Though it is a small number of sales, the buy-in of the people that read the book was, dude, what's the next thing? Because this is hard. I tried to give everything in my book, but the vehicle is limited. I can only tell you what to do. There's things that are going to come up. There's securities laws, there's market changes, there's dynamics, there's marketing changes. And so I launched something called Raisemasters in January 2021. And the cool thing that I'm excited to talk to you about today briefly is that we scaled to $1 million in revenue in 9 months. And within 31 months, we just passed 10 million revenue. So it's been just a really awesome ride, and it's been a rocket ship, and it's been so fulfilling. And it's cool to say the revenue number, and I'll probably market that and lead with that because it's awesome. But the real thing that's like just makes me so confident in the future is what you said at the beginning about it impacting your life. That's very common, and it's not because of me. Yes, it was me that had the idea, but I'm sure the overwhelming value that you've gotten from it is the community. And that's why I'm so proud of it. Cause, at my best, I view the community, which is second to none, as a bit of a reflection of all the stuff we're going to talk about today. And that's what I'm most proud of in my entire career. And yeah, we put the points on the board, and the Stripe account went crazy, but the truth is, there's something way bigger there. Like, we can't help but feel we're on the tip of the iceberg because the impact is just huge. So I'm excited.
Yeah, your book was how I first got introduced to you, and being part of the community. I'm no stranger to masterminds. I've been part of a ton of masterminds before this. I've paid for 6 figures in coaching, before joining Raisemasters. So I'm no stranger to it. And I was overwhelmed by the amount of value. Most people are like, oh, you buy some kind of online course and sort of that's it, or you get some coaching. Here, you really knocked it out of the park with the community, being able to connect people with all different levels in their real estate journey. I know people in your mastermind have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, guys who are just getting started. And so being able to connect with guys who are just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you really is the key there, because the conversation with someone just starting out, and they don't necessarily need to talk to someone who's raised $200 million. But if they've raised $1 million or $2 million, that's who they need to be with. And that's what's so great about the community that you built. And I can tell you're super passionate about it. How did you get this idea to do this? Because you obviously have had a lot of success in the real estate space, the raising capital space, and you've been doing it a while. You really figured out like which assets that you wanted to hone in on. How did this idea come to fruition to do something like this? I know you're big on making an impact, but like, I don't know. I mean, the market was just ready for this. Did you see something there and be like, did you recognize the opportunity, or was this just a passion project that took off?
Yes and no. So everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. And there's a strength that I have that's very pronounced, which is kind of understanding trends and seeing tailwinds versus headwinds. And so, I don't talk about this often, but it won't be surprising to people that are familiar with me. There was a very important moment in my career where I very consciously was contemplating if I wanted to go the economics investor route. And that book was going to be about economics of real estate and how to anticipate trends in the market and such, or the capital raising marketing leader. And I've got to pull this interview up. In fact, no, I think I just posted it again. So if you go to my podcast and search the Capital Raising Playbook 2021, I literally on that show say, I think there's an opportunity for me to be the #1 capital raising coach. And that's a very silly thing to say out loud. It was silly to say back then. It's silly to say now. But in my view, if you have an opportunity where at least that's on the table, it's like, you gotta go for it if you like it and it brings fulfillment and makes money. And so there was a very pronounced opportunity where I thought that might be on the table. And I still do think that's on the table. It's a bold claim to make now, but I think there's a path to that being true. And it brought me so much fulfillment and money. And I was like, we just got to go all in. So, but there was a conscious effort, because as an entrepreneur, you've got to go towards the heat. So when you start hearing things like, hey, I really love these economics podcasts you do. Oh, all of my best clients love economics. The way you break down interest rates and the way that you talk about the inverted yield curve, man, no one else is breaking it down like that. And by the way, the reason for that is that I am not an Ivy League background person. I, really struggled in college, both from a grade standpoint and from a being bored standpoint. Did much better in terms of grades as the courses got more advanced and more specialized. But because of that background, I've got this kind of interesting knack for taking very complicated topics and saying them in a way that anyone can understand. And so economics is a thing where, you're not going to not know economics if you listen to my show, because you can't help it. You're going to learn it, right? It's just the unique characteristics that I have. Someone else that has a similar characteristic, and this is not a comparison at all, but you'll know if you listen to his show, Joe Rogan. He is not a genius, but if you don't know him very well or don't listen to his shows very well, you'd be surprised at the way that his characteristics manifest. It makes him sound like he's a genius. It's like, how in the world? He's got very insane memory recall. He's got a very good vocabulary. And he also has, and this is the thing we have in common, because he kind of thinks at like a 8th grade, 9th grade level, like myself, he's got to like hear it and then repurpose it and say it in a way that's like, holy crap, this dude understands this in such a deep level, but he just knows the right questions to ask. At least that's the part I think we're similar. Obviously, his podcast is a very different ballgame than mine, but I can hear it because I can hear the way that when people say, oh, he's so smart, that he's like, no, bro, it's the opposite of that. And that's so true for me as well. It's not the intellect, it's just the communication skills. And so I got to use what I've got. And so that's what I decided to go all in on.
And so you made this decision, and I share that, by the way. I don't think I ever graduated past 3rd grade. I really don't. And so I try to take the exact same things, especially when communicating to investors, and break it down and simplifying it. Otherwise, you lose them. Complication is that's what scares people away, especially when it comes from investments. But you said that you had this knack for being able to identify tailwinds, market trends. I mean, what did that look like? How did you recognize this opportunity to start a capital raising mastermind and teach people in the real estate world how to raise capital for real estate deals?
So just going back to the book for a second, it was very clear that a book needed to be written about the new age of raising money. The playbook, to me and a few other people that had lived it, was very clear. It was podcast, content creation, lead magnets, nurture sequences. And that book hadn't been written, but the playbook was being lived out. And the beginning of this call has been odd. Usually I talk about all my ridiculous failures, and now I'm bragging a little bit, which is very weird for me. But let me just say this. It wasn't just me, guys like Joe Fairless or Michael Blanc, and then the new age of guys like Rob Beardsley. It was all very clear that was the move, and no one had ironed it out. And so what ended up happening was Joe Fairless actually wrote a book, the best ever book about syndication. And I would put that in the top 5 that anybody should read it. But it came out as I was writing my book. And I was like, dude, obviously he wrote my book. I was like, there's no way he didn't, because it's so clear. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so present. And so I bought the book that he wrote and I got it. And I remember going out to the pool and sitting and just being like, if I open this book and it's the exact same chapter by chapter. And I peeked in, I was like, no, it wasn't. It was really robust and way more broad. And I was like, this is perfect. Okay. So and I was on a race then because I knew someone would write it. And so I wrote it as fast as I possibly could. It took me 6 months and I let it rip, self-published on Amazon. And that was the real moment of like that opportunity where I knew the book was going to work because it was so clearly working. And it was just a matter of people understanding it that had gotten into business. It took me 10 years to figure out that was the playbook. But if I could just give them a book, $7, and outline it, they were going to have success. And so the concept of creating a coaching program was the next rational step, because it's a difficult to navigate industry and a very potentially lucrative industry. So the combination of those two make for a really good higher end coaching program and mastermind. And of course, in this industry, partnerships are critical to success, and that can be something that can 10x your business. So if you get all the right people in the right room, armed with the most lucrative skill in the world, they're going to have an incredible result. They're going to be able to justify $20,000, $50,000 of an investment, because all they got to do is find one person and do one deal with them, and it'll pay for their membership for years. And so my original goal was to launch Raisemasters and for 35 people to join over several years and for 50 people to join in 3 years. That was my kind of goal. And 35 people joined, I think, within 3 months or just a couple of weeks. And then we had 100 members within 6 months. And I just kept dumping gasoline on the fire and haven't stopped.
And today, I think it's you've got over 400 members. I think when I see the Slack members, is it over 400 members in the community?
Correct. Yeah, it's active. 420 are active right now. I think somewhere around 617 have been through the program at some point, because it's an annual program. And so there's 420 active people right now.
Yeah, I love it. And what was really interesting to me, because I found you via the book, and I think you're right. I mean, this whole, I feel like, industry is still relatively green, right? Being able, running the fund to funds model, being able to raise capital for real estate deals, automated. That was really the difference that your book was kind of teaching and your mastermind does. Because I think I had read back when I was flipping houses, I read Susan Lasser's book, Getting the Money, and it was kind of cool. I applied one concept while I was reading right there, and I raised 50 grand over like a phone call and a text. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But I remember thinking in my journey, I'd probably raised somewhere around like $3-4 million. And I knew the point that I wanted to scale to. And I was like, dude, oh my God. I was raising dollar for dollar, right? So I was raising debt at the time. And I was like, oh my God, man, like I'm going to have to raise $30 million to get
Yeah.
where I want to go. And I'm like, Father, this is going to take this is going to take a long time. And then you got the problem with debt where it's like playing Tetris with people's money. Cause if you've got a $300,000 opportunity, but then they only have 250, well, do you go find another person and do a second position? And now it gets messy. And I mean, it just became this kind of nightmare for me managing people's money. And I'm like, dude, this is going to take forever. And then I was introduced to your book and your mastermind, where I learned what a syndication was, how to do it properly, how to do it legally. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can now go and do a syndication where if I talk to the investors, not only can I pay them more than the 10% that I was paying them in promissory notes, I can pay them more than that because it's equity and they're a partner. And then I can use that equity in the syndication to go and leverage and get bank loans. And literally, overnight, I had access to, I think I went and got like $15 million in bank loans. And today we're doing, I think, somewhere around $30 million of new construction. Man, it was absolutely amazing. I was like, holy crap. Like, you literally talk about, I know you do these decade in the day calls on your mastermind, but talk about compressing a decade down in the day. I mean, that actually defines the definition of it, because it was going to take me 10 years to raise $30 million because I thought I needed to do that dollar for dollar. But I was then able to raise, I got to the $10 million mark, and I think I'm about at a 1 to 3 rep leverage where we raise, for every dollar we raise, we get $2 or $3 in debt. And it literally compressed that down. So it was absolutely amazing. When you were starting to, what did the growth trajectory look like on this? Because I've been a part of many masterminds in the past, and I've never seen one scale as fast as yours did. A lot of times when you have I would classify you as a very high growth company. It takes most very successful companies 5 or 6 years to reach that $10 million mark. If you read the Good to Great Jim Collins books and 0 to 100 million Ready Aim Fire, it usually takes 5-6 years. And there's a lot of broken pieces and systems and processes that you have to figure out along the way. But I mean, you did it really well. And I don't feel like the customer service ever slacked. I don't feel like anything kind of ever broke. You had amazing staff. From a customer standpoint, I feel like everything continued to run really smooth, which is very unexpected with a high scale, high growth company like yours. So like, what did that growth trajectory look like? And how did you manage it so well without it just falling apart? It's like one of those old cars you drive, you get over 100 miles an hour and it starts like, it's going to like fall apart. That's usually how these like high growth businesses go, but yours has continued to do really, really well despite all the success and growth.
Well, that's what I was excited to talk to you about. First of all, that's so good to hear. And it's funny because let's talk through it. I've never talked about it before, so I'm excited. I mean, I'll put it this way. The first thing was that every move was made totally focused on the customer journey and zero focused on how much money we were going to make, especially not profit. Geez. Like, I mean, I can give you many examples, but one would be, we started out with a meeting a month, and now we have elite industry titans that I go to when I need help, daily coaching. Like, let's start with that. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, $500 million plus people. And I'll rattle off some names: Rob Beardsley, Reed Goosens, Christopher Nelson, who's been through 2 IPOs, Ben Frazier, who's raised $100 million of equity, let alone debt. I mean, real serious people that I literally, when I'm stuck, hey man, I need a question. We're going through some interest rate challenge. Who do I call? It's like those exact people. So that would be one thing. And we got to pay those people because they're very successful, but also the nature of what we teach, they also want to be there because it's good for their business. So like, that's one. Another would be full-time a W-2 employee's multiple that their only role is customer success. I'll give you a book that no one has read that it totally changed your business, which is Customer Success. Just a book called Customer Success, or the Customer Success Manual. There's a whole world out there in the world of business that is this corner of business that no one pays attention to, which is actually getting your clients results. And so the reason that Alex Hormozi's book, $100 million Offers, got so much success, and everyone calls it a marketing book, and he's like, that's not a marketing book. That's a book on product, my friends. And if you have a good product, you can see insane results. You don't have to just slam your foot on the gas of paid ads. The thing will grow itself, because why wouldn't it? I mean, look, I don't take credit for your success, not even close to it. I just right person, right time, right information. And dude, you're like, you saved me 10 years. Like, how long? That moment, you're like, I love this guy. You know what I mean? And why wouldn't you? Right. So I'm trying to recreate those same things in little businesses along the way, but it's super focused on them. So as an example, we do have client success managers that do one-on-one calls, and like their goal is to create those moments. Think about, as they're trained to think about, as they're hearing their pain points, the challenges, et cetera. It's like, I'm actually trying to solve this. I'm not just there to say we have one-on-one coaching. No, I'm trying to find partnerships, find service providers, negotiate discounts with those service providers. That's the way we get the value. And like, I have never cared about EBITDA. The 10 million figure is cool. And I'm not going to lie, that number, I've been thinking about that number since we launched it. But, the reason I care more about the top line than the bottom line is the top line is indicative of the amount of impact we're having. Who cares about the bottom line?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that part will come, but that's private. And that's between me and the quote IRS. You know what I mean? And I'll do what I can to pay as little taxes as possible. So like, that's the mindset. And that has resulted in us having just a far more robust infrastructure and constantly evolving. I'll give you another example. I felt like our clients, when I originally created the course, I kind of thought in my head that everyone would have read my book and implemented all of it. So I created a course that was like the next step of that, as opposed to being like, hey, welcome to Raisemasters. Here's the exact same content, which probably would have been fine. And that's standard, by the way. So what ended up happening is people would join without a website or join without any mailing list. And so I met a girl, actually knew her socially, but she has blown up her coaching business as well. And she has a product called Tiny Audience Secrets. And so I said, hey, listen, I will give you blank tens of thousands of dollars if you recreate this program specifically designed for capital raisers, for people that are just getting started with zero email list and no website. And so we paid her quite a bit of money, and then just inserted into the training for free. And so one day, all our members get an email that says, congrats, we just spent this amount of money, and now you've got another 12 modules of how to get started with zero email list on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's like, who else is doing this? And lastly, because it's such a hot niche, we launched and we were, quote, the #1 mastermind for elite capital raisers because we're the only one. But now, it's something that more people are doing. And my message to them is good luck. In order to have that kind of result, you have to have this mindset of, let me just spend tens of thousands of dollars on a random Wednesday and send an email saying, go for it. But the reason we do that is because it actually works. And now the Slack channel is filled with, you're never going to believe this. I did one social media post on Instagram. I've got 8 followers. I raised 50 grand. How big of a buy-in is that particular client going to have from years to come? So that's the mindset, and that's the answer.
So I love what you said there. It sounds like there was a huge focus on the product, similar to what Alex Hormozi did with $100 million offers, right?
Yes.
Like, what does he say? There's like a saying. He says that the only reason that you market is because you don't know how to sell, or the only reason you don't know how to sell is because you can't build a product. And like, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's like the Elon Musk of Tesla, right? They didn't spend any money on advertising. It blew up, took a huge share of the market because he focused on building an amazing product. Same thing with Hormozi's book. Same thing with your mastermind, because you literally are delivering. I mean, you can't almost put a price on the money you've made me is absolutely astronomical compared to what I would have made had I not done it. Right. You can put a physical number on it. So when you add up, you were so focused. I remember you and Adam, y'all would, and I think I was one of the probably the first, maybe not the first one joined, but I think I joined year one. I wasn't the first,
Yeah,
but year one.
100%.
And like y'all, I could tell by how much y'all cared with the emails. Y'all were so quick to the customer service. It took me a few weeks to go through the course because God, it was a lot of content. But your course literally changed everything and taught me things that I didn't even know existed. Again, compressing that decade down into days. And then on top of it, you had the coaching. The guys you can go to each week, you can hop on an e-call, get advice from the best guys in the world that are actually doing it. I can't tell you how many masterminds I've been a part of where, people kind of did do the thing in the business at some point. Then they realized there was more money to be made in doing the coaching. And so that's all they are, but they, they can still do it, but you're still doing it with ASIM. You're still proving the model out. And so the coaches that you've brought on board who've I've met, and they're awesome guys, you've contracted to bring some like great teams in from some other world-class masterminds. I know Russell Brunson's, you've got some people that you've brought over from that, and you've done some contracting with them. They've been actually amazing on the marketing side. So you seem to do a really good job of bringing these professionals in. And I'll tell you something else that you do. Usually there's about a 3-year attrition rate in masterminds. So I've been a part of a lot of them. I've actually been coaches of other masterminds and like the house flipping worlds and stuff like that. Usually around that 3rd-year mark, you turn in the person that's just give, and you're not necessarily getting as much as that point. And you spend that, that 1 year, maybe 1 year after that, maybe doing some high level stuff for them, or, trying to give back and you just want to give back. Mm-hmm. You've figured out a way. You've continued. I know you released a higher level mastermind, on top of Raisemasters, that I'm a part of, Capital Collective. But even in the Raisemasters community, you do a good job of continuing to deliver value. You recently came out with a fund to funds course, right? No extra charge. You created it and gave it because you listened, you understood what the members' needs were, and you created that course. I think you had, again, you brought on, I think, Janae Rose for the Instagram stuff, the social stuff. Again, just to do it, you were listening. So I don't think that you're going to have the same attrition rate other masterminds have, because you are continuing to try and look for unique ways to add value. And I think that's super cool. I don't know if you're aware or not, but I want to make you aware of as a customer that you've got. What does the future look like for Raisemasters and the community?
So let me talk real quick about what you just said, and then we can talk about that if that's okay. So it's always on our mind ways to continue. It's very, very difficult to do, frankly, because information, it's so honestly like appreciated and refreshing. And it's just, I'm very grateful about the things you said at the beginning, because people forget quickly. And this is nothing against them, but it's the nature of information. Information is extremely valuable right before you know it. And then it's all of a sudden, everyone knew that. And I don't even remember where I learned that. Who cares? Mm-hmm. So like the fact that that really impacted you and you've given me credit for that years later is truly unique. But we try to make the pop so big that it's hard to deny. And we try to over deliver so that you don't have some weird stigma later. It's like, well, I did learn it, but geez, he threw me over the coals in terms of the amount of money. So it's like, I'm not going to really refer anyone there, like you can't help that. But even myself, like people that have been incredibly monumental in my career, at some point, you go left and they went right. And then you kind of like have this thing where you don't even want to mention it anymore because you feel like you surpassed them, or this is the normal nature of mentors and mentees, as it should be. And so number one, I will say that I lean into that. And it's awesome that we have people in my community or our community that have done things that I've never done. That is super humbling, exciting. I'm a competitive guy. Geez Louise, what do you think we're doing talking about all this stuff? But it nags at me in the best way possible, meaning good. Like, dude, I love that Rob Beardsley's like 10 years younger than me. And it's amazing, right? And I'm telling everyone that because it means one thing. They can do it too, And so good for them. The other thing, though, is that the Fund of Funds course, this is a short story, but I did create a course about a topic, and this very unique structure that really did change my life and allow me to lean into capital raising, which is what I love to do. We created a course, multi-module, I think 9 modules, email templates, phone scripts, of how to raise your first $1 million or next $1 million using this unique structure. Mm-hmm. And we actually sold it in a pre-sale for $1997. and we're going to sell it for 3,997 when we launched it. And as we were going to launch it, I realized that I didn't want to sell it because I wanted anyone that wanted to create a fund of funds for ASIM Capital. I wanted them to instantly have access to it. I didn't want to say, okay, I can't wait for you to give me $1 million, but first give me $4,000 so I can teach you how to give me $1 million. It's like, that's going to slow down the customer journey.
Give away the secrets.
100%. So what we did, and this was awkward even for someone like myself, but we went into Stripe and we refunded $20,000 in net profit from the people that already bought during the pre-sale. And I said, hey, good news, you're getting your money back and you can keep the course. And the reason is, if you keep it between us, in a month, we're going to give it all away for free. And so then we did. We gave it away for free. And you can have it if you're listening right now. Just go to fundoffundsmastery.com. And we didn't change anything. We built the course because we were going to sell it, and now it's just there. But the cool thing is, it's a good tie-in to the next question, which was, what's the future? And the future is building the community to help raise capital for our deals. And especially given the market dynamics, I'm willing to bet, my career on the performance of those assets. And, but of course, you can raise capital for anybody. And if you can raise capital, you can get a meeting with anybody. It's just that we do multifamily in Phoenix. So hopefully, if you're interested in that niche, we'll be one of the people you call.
Yeah. I do feel like, in a certain sense, because this is still like a new thing, it's still like, I don't want to call it the Wild Wild West because it's got a bad rap, but like I don't think it's ever been easier or will ever be easier to do what you can do with this funds of fund model in this particular time. Like I see how, different industries evolve and get older, and the government gets involved and regulated. And like, I see where it goes. It's like, now is the time to get in this. Now is the time to do this. Stop waiting for the opportunity. Now, the conditions, especially, you mentioned that you see some opportunity on the horizon. I think that everyone sees the $2 trillion of debt that's coming due, this year and next year, and what's going to happen with that. And it sounds like you're positioning really well. And I know some guys they've really blown up their business using this fund of funds model. Right.
Yeah.
And there's guys in your mastermind that have done it. There's tons of deals that are being done in it. I know a few sponsors they've in several years, they've gone from zero to $1 billion under assets. And this fund of funds model is the vehicle for that. And I felt like it was this secret that is, you had to be kind of in Wall Street, among the elite, kind of doing this. It's not like completely new, but you had to have certain licenses and stuff to get around it. And now your everyday real estate investor can do it without having to jump through all this red tape. And what I love is the community you set up, you try to knock down as many barriers as possible. One thing that somebody might want to do and stay out of jail when it comes to raising capital is you need to speak with a great attorney about it, who can set up a 506C or a 506B. You've got that in the community. They might want to talk to somebody who's really figured out how to, be compliant and have the conversations with the investors on the call. And there's somebody in the community that you can go to that's already figured that out. They can just give you all of their years that they've spent doing it and help you. So it's really amazing to see how giving the culture is. And that's what I want to talk about next. How do you go about creating this culture in your mastermind community? Because I've seen a lot where there's certain groups that, to really make a mastermind successful, you have to create the culture of giving back. And that's very difficult to do. You have to motivate people in some way, shape, or form to give back. And maybe that's, providing a massive amount of value up front. I don't know, but it is extremely difficult, as every business owner will attest to build culture in their business, let alone build a culture where everybody feels this need to give. How have you created that?
Man, that's a good question. And, I'll start with this. So the way that we generated all that revenue is actually very, very simple, right? We have a very simple business and a very simple quote funnel that we just made better every day and still are making better every day. I'm talking like a 2-page website that's generated $10 million of revenue, right? And the reason that I want to keep it like that for as long as possible is that simple is scalable and everything else is not. And so there's not like 30 businesses going on, right? We have 2 businesses, but both have six-figure plus COOs. And so, and they're also symbiotic. If they weren't symbiotic, we would have closed one of them down because simple scales. And all you need is to scale one. Like, I was early on in my career. Oh, I can make 100 grand in this business. Well, how about I create 6 businesses and I'll make 600 grand? No, it's actually, you now make $0 because you were all over the place and all of them failed, which is very common in the world of entrepreneurship. So that's one thing. The other thing, though, is that with that same thing in mind, any iteration of negative word of mouth is basically not tolerated. So like any hint of drama, think about it. Why are we all in real estate? It's because we could say that we were going to own our own company, and now we did, because we don't have to rely on anybody. You can start a real estate company tomorrow and just say you are a real estate company. That's the beauty of it. So it's a bunch of like oddball misfits that didn't make it in corporate America. Like, and I know I'm talking to someone right now that like had that, happen in their life. So take that, multiply it by 600. And how have you, and I'm sure this is the truth, as a consumer, never really heard much about any drama within our community? I mean, has that ever occurred to you? Like, think about the kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes that would create drama all the time. People doing deals that shouldn't have been partnerships together, deals going wrong, capital calls that happen, and people lying about things, just constantly that. But I'll tell a story that will paint the picture. We have like a very specific zero ego policy that starts with me with the biggest ego. You know what I mean? So like, I've got to have that ego to believe that maybe we could be the #1 mastermind. And I think that anyone that shares that with me, by the way, lean into that. Don't be afraid of that. Kobe Bryant exists, right? Like, RIP, but the only way that Kobe exists is that he actually thought he deserved to be there. And now there's other people out there that are, quote, their worst critic and all that. And you want to balance those two things. But dude, if you have that feeling like you are that Mamba mentality, go for it. There's nothing to be ashamed of in that. However, marry it with this story, which is that we had, I'm not going to say their name for obvious reasons, but we had a member who expired his membership and didn't continue to the next year, which is fine. And that happens, and was actually in a meeting of ours, which also can happen. They have the link. Maybe they don't even know that it expired. And we're like watching this, watching Zoom. And I was actually talking about our opportunity in Phoenix. And I didn't know, but it ended up being the case that my team kicked him out because they saw that he wasn't there and messaged, hey, you haven't paid the thing or whatever. There was a miscommunication. And apparently he was saying that like he wasn't a fan of Phoenix when this happened. And so he genuinely thought that we kicked him out because he was saying like, Phoenix, he didn't say Phoenix sucks, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, like hey, there's concessions happening in Phoenix and rent's not really rising the way you think it is. And it was a true miscommunication. I didn't even know about this. But what happened in the DMs afterwards and the way that we resolved that is like like, dude, I sent him a loom. I was like, bro, not only would we never do that, my attitude is like, dude, you think we kicked you out for that? My partner's moving there, bro. I want to know. Like, you think if rents are going down, dude, I don't want to kick you out. I want to be like, bring him up. Let's have him on a panel next week because I need to get to the bottom of this now. And that's truly my feeling. And that person, I'm confident, believes me when how we address that situation. But like, I could have definitely been like, you didn't pay your bills, bro. Screw you. What do you think? But that is so far from like our attitude. And I genuinely meant it when I was like, the last thing we would want to do is make you leave. I'm going to have my partner call you and be like, am I making a huge mistake? Because I'm in a U-Haul right now. So that's a big part of the answer, to be honest.
Dude, this is awesome. Love what you've been doing. Love the culture. Love the community. I love this conversation. For those in the audience that want to learn more about Raisemasters, learn more about your Fund of Funds courses, where can they go?
Yeah. So Fund of Funds Mastery, just go there and pick up that course for free and demolish that. That will help you raise your first million. And once you start to, have some success with that, then you can just go to raisemasters.com and click a bouncing button. That'll book a call with someone on my team to take it to the next level. Also, we have an event coming up in February in Phoenix, which is Raise Fest. And that you can learn about that at raisefest.com. And it is very cool. It is like capital raising, marketing, momentum, mindset, and EDM, and a bunch of speakers and subwoofers. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, rock and roll, dude. So we'll make sure those links are in the show notes there. Hunter, man, it's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks a bunch, dude.
See ya.